You're listening to a Whales Are Whales production. You're also listening to Whales. Visit whalesorewhales.com for more projects and shows like this one.
Greetings.
Howdy, and welcome to Hearthaholics, a Hearthstone strategy podcast about sitting back, chatting with friends, and figuring out how to be more awesome at this game. This week, we're going to be talking about how to counter Hunter. Billy has a custom-made card he brought, and Andres is going to talk to us a little bit about low-level ladder play and how to start that climb to legend. I'm your host, Bryan, and joining me today are the aforementioned Andres and Billy. How you doing, Billy?
I am doing well, despite my this country's effort to keep me away from the show. I've made it. I might have been having internet issues, but I'm
Despite
going
the
well.
Australian secret police.
Yeah, the Australian
capturing
secret
you.
police capturing me and, trying to take down my internet. I've managed
Luckily,
to
it
make
wasn't very dangerous because they don't have guns, so
Yes,
they can't
of
really
course
do
not.
too much.
Wait, I thought that was England police.
No, we don't
What?
have guns either.
And Australia didn't have guns either? Oh.
No.
I'm looking for a place.
It's kind of like Australia. It's kind of like America, and then, that's it. That's the only, as far as I'm aware, there's,
Australia's America without guns?
yeah, kind of, but, everything is
Yet
super
somehow
dangerous.
it's still more dangerous.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like, okay,
well, but
so
it's dangerous for other reasons, like
Australia
giant snakes
is
and
Australia
spiders.
is just America, but extreme danger levels and don't have Canada to go and feel nice. I feel like America, if they're upset, they can just go talk to a really nice Canadian because Canadians are super nice. But
I have
we
a
don't
dark
that.
feeling that the reason Australians don't have guns now is because all of the crazy, evil wildlife you have, became lobbyists and said, okay, please don't give any of your citizens guns. That way they can't kill us when we try to murder them.
Right? I feel like
they won?
Australia is the perfect country to have guns. We need to defend ourselves from
I
these
do
wild
feel like
animals.
it is the most important place to have guns. Just because.
I want to know the lawyers of this insects, because if they won that argument, wow.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
They just paid the judge off.
This is a podcast about Hearthstone, by
No,
the way.
it's not. What are you talking about? Oh my god.
Also joining us is Andres. Hey, Andres, how you doing?
Hey, Brian, I can't introduce myself to talk there, but
Okay.
I am doing well.
Yes. Well, I like double introducing you because I don't want to be rude.
I didn't get double
But yeah.
introduced, Brian. I feel left out.
That is the voice you're hearing is Billy. Hello, Billy.
Hello.
All right. So the big thing that happened this last week, I mean, there were multiple kind of big things, but I'm going to say the big thing was Tavern Brawl was actually released. Billy, what did you think of Tavern Brawl?
I missed it. What's Tavern Bro?
Okay, so this is going to take longer than I thought.
No. Okay, so I really enjoyed Tavern Bro. I feel like a lot of people might have been upset because they were expecting a balanced game mode. I don't think that's what they should
Right.
have been looking for in this, especially this week. I don't know. I feel like they can mix and match up Tavern Brawl and make some weeks competitive, but it's certainly not this week. I really enjoyed this week. I don't know. I don't know other people's opinions. I haven't really been listening to any podcasts this week. That's actually what I was going to do straight after this show, actually. But I don't know. I feel like if people are complaining about this, they're doing it the wrong way. I think this is a really cool addition to Hearthstone. I think it's super fun. I especially
actually been in
enjoyed
this-
playing Ragnaros,
Oh, go ahead.
actually, because Ragnaros' ability to play a 6/6 on turn 2 is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it has
I'm with you there. I like Ragnaros, except in the end, Nefarian has wild magic.
Ragnaros has Die Insect.
You get a random spell every single turn.
You mean you get a silence every single time? That's pretty good.
But yeah,
sometimes those spells can be pretty abysmal, but sometimes they can be great.
it was pretty interesting to see. No one, at least I assume since I didn't know, no one really knew what Tavern Brawl was going to be. And then this came out and it had you playing the two bosses from BlackRock against each other. So one is playing as Teferian, who had the ability to get random spells, and then one is playing as Ragnaros, who had the ability to have a weapon at the beginning, and then once he used it all up, it had a death rattle where it gave him his hero power to do 8 damage to something randomly. And what was really interesting is I at least assumed that Tavern Brawl would be more focused about like the challenge stone, I think is the tournament, that type of thing where it just gives you rules and you build a deck around it. I wasn't expecting them to create custom art and custom rules and new heroes and build your decks for you and give you like this crazy whole blown out pre-done experience.
I don't think it was custom art. I think this is all taken directly from Blackrock Mountain.
Okay,
like
was it
literally cards that the bosses had.
I thought there were a couple new ones in there, but I could be.
I think there were a couple new ones, but
cards
they were
like other, like they mixed like different cards from different bosses.
Gotcha. So no actual new art, though.
I think all the new art that you're thinking of was just art taken from either WoW TCG stuff or just old art they had laying around. I don't think they had artists.
Oh, yeah. I didn't mean to imply that they created new art for it. I meant the art, to me at least, was new for Hearthstone, but I could have missed it in BlackRock.
I think there were a couple new things for Hearthstone, though.
Yeah, totally. And then there was also new like cards. Like I don't think any boss, if I remember correctly, played the 2020, but I could have just never run into it.
Yeah, I don't think any boss played the 6/6 with Taunt and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think they added. I think they added a few cards for like Shock Factor. But yeah, most of them were taken from the boss fights in Blackrock Mountain.
Mm-hmm. But just that whole crazy pre-made deck with new rule stuff. Wasn't expecting that. What did you think of it, Andres? Did you even get much chance to play it?
Yeah, I got a couple games in. It was really fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I mean, it was pretty ridiculous. All the cards were just incredibly overpowered, and the hero powers just felt like I don't know, just ridiculous games all over the place. So I had a lot of fun playing them. Got a lot of laughs out of those. Aside from that, you're right. I was expecting a little more of the deck building thing, although I still think that it's gonna be like that. Just that they're gonna have like weeks where it's just gonna be like awesome matches like this one, just like huge 2 contenders, Ragnaros and Nefarian, just like ridiculous cards. Some other times it'll be more like, hey, these are the rules, build a deck. And I'm looking forward to those weeks, because the only downside to this week was that, you know...
I wanted to cut in here for a sec, because I just had a brilliant idea. You know how you were talking about the idea of 2 people facing off, and that's we're going to have weeks like that. What if they trolled us one week and did Monk versus Death Knight?
I mean, that could happen. They could do whatever they want.
Hilarious.
But yeah, I think just because this week it was just like a set fight, the replayability factor kind of like got old over the course of the week. Like the first few days it was awesome, but you know, once you played it, 10, 20 times, it was like, okay, it's the same fight, same decks, same characters. When they do more of the custom rules where you make your own decks, I don't know, I feel like it's going to be a little more variety, and you might not know what necessarily is going to happen every time.
I think it will be harder for new players to play it, though. Like, I don't know, well, not necessarily new players, but I mean, there's no nice way to say this. It will be harder for bad players to play, right? Where for this mode, because it was... I don't agree with this, but a lot of people see it to be a really one-sided matchup, right? And if you're a new player and you jump in as Nefarian, you're like, oh, I did really well that game, I won. Mm-hmm. But if they do the deck... Because that's the advantage of having it update every week. Like, I don't know, it's really cool that they can just mess that around. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling
that's
now.
Something interesting I find about this whole mode is that I think a lot of the value of it is going to come when it's not just the excitement about it coming out and wanting to spend all of your time on it and having a new mode to spend all of your time in Hearthstone. Like, that's not what it is. I think that's one reason there aren't a bunch of rewards to continue playing it. But I think what is exciting about it is the fact that it's going to be rotating every single week. So it's just going to become another interesting thing to do occasionally as you see what's updated. And when you're not completely focused on a new mode in Hearthstone and anticipating it with a ton of hype, you'll be surprised how fast a week goes by and suddenly you have another new thing to do in Hearthstone.
Yeah,
right. I'm already feeling the disappointment of not being able to play the new mode. So for people watching this, we're currently in between the 2 days where it's resetting. And for me, I logged on this morning because I was having internet troubles. I didn't want to jump into ranked. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go play Tavern Brawl. And I'm like, oh, Tavern Brawl's closed. That's That's upsetting. I wanna play
Yeah,
Tavern
honestly,
Brawl.
it is quite a bummer. It's like, oh, well, new game mode, can't play it, but I guess we're
Yeah.
just gonna have to live with it for now.
Yeah. Like you said about it not being incredibly replayable, except this week, like I haven't had any desire really to go back to it since I played like 30 matches on our game night when it first came out.
Yeah, I think that's a strange circumstance, though. Like, we're in
not
a,
everyone's like me.
yeah, that's a real specific. That's a good problem to have.
Totally. Like, I think I have a really good setup for it. And anyone who wants to come to our game nights will also have a good setup for it. Because, like, right when it comes out, you can play it a ton with friends, have a fun time, and then go on to ladder if you want for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I
Or
feel
if
like
it's-
that's exactly
yeah.
what it's for. It's just like, hey, I just want a little refresher from like playing competitively, or like I don't want to have to like really think about this too much. I just want to have fun with a game, have some ridiculous games, some funsies, and play with your friends. I think that's the best way to play this mode.
Totally. So before we move on to our main topics, I need a quick poll from all of you about Tavern Brawl. Ragnaros or Nefarian? Billy?
Ragnaros.
Why?
Because he does fire things and has fire stuff. Also,
right,
die insect is cool.
That is an accurate point. All right, Andres.
Wait, just to be clear, are we going for what wins or what was our favorite to play?
We're going with what was our favorite.
Okay, I'm just
I
making
mean,
sure.
this isn't a question if we're asking what
All right.
on average wins. I think it went something like, I don't know, like 16-7 in our game night in favor of Nefarian. So it maybe if we had, 3 months to figure out the meta, Ragnaros would make a big pushback, but at least in the early days, it was Nefarian. But yeah, which did you prefer, Andres?
I am gonna go for Ragnaros too.
Oh, there's a sequel to Ragnaros?
I quite like Ragnaros. I don't know, 8 random damage is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Ragnaros, I like it because he kind of feels like a control warrior.
I feel like
You
a
kinda
lot
on
of
the back
people
foot.
said that Nefarian was overpowered, but the thing is, I feel like you just had to think about him a little differently. Like with Nefarian, the card advantage was really apparent because you just clicked your hero power and you get a new
Right.
spell, and sometimes you get ridiculous spells that could win you the game.
That's
But
true.
Ragnaros, once you get that hero power activated, like that thing is huge, and if you just manage to kind of like pace Nefarian into the late game, that hero power just takes over because you just keep removing everything, and just like damage to the face.
Right, yeah. I mean, honestly, lore-wise, I think it makes sense anyway that Nefarian would be more powerful than Ragnaros. I like the idea that we just get a week of
You think they
Ragnaros.
factored that into it?
I hope so. I hope they're like, well, obviously the underdog here is Ragnaros, and we want to test asymmetric gameplay, so let's just, have Nefarian beating on Ragnaros for a while.
Honestly, that might be a thing. Like, hey,
Yeah.
if we give this character an edge, then some people maybe that are not as good can always maybe have an advantage at winning and having fun
Yep.
at this game. Feel super overpowered, and because it only lasts a week, like really nobody cares about the balance of it.
Well, a lot of people cared. I just don't think they should have. A lot of people got upset about the whole Ragnaros thing, but whatever.
Yeah, I think
won
it'll
quite a
take
few
some
games with
adapting.
Ragnaros. I think I was fine.
Yeah, I just like that it's that it is that they're doing asymmetric like on purpose or not. I think that's a really interesting way to play multiplayer, and especially in something where there are literally no consequences to losing. What's wrong with going into a multiplayer match and saying, well, it's less likely that I'm going to win, but I'll just adapt to that and still play my best. And it makes
Yeah,
it
it can
more
be a
about
challenge.
Yeah, makes it more about figuring out the tactics and less just about the binary state of whether you won or lost. And I like game design going in that direction when it can, again, when there aren't like tournaments and huge actual stakes on
Yeah,
it.
for me, when I queued up and I saw like Nefarian, I'm like, all right, time to have some fun. And whenever I saw Ragnaros, I'm like, all right, time to win. Like, I'm going to concentrate
Yeah.
on this because this is the challenge which has been put in front of me.
Speaking of concentrating and trying to beat the challenge that's put in front of me, I've been on ladder this last week. And I have been losing repeatedly. It's not been going too well.
I don't know about losing repeatedly. I mean, you're at rank 4 right now, and you were just at rank 3.
Yes, that means I lost more than I won.
Well, yeah, but you're at rank 4. So, like,
Yes, I'm not like plummeting. That fortunately has been avoided so far. Partially because I'm paralyzed to go back to it because I don't want to plummet. But yeah, I haven't like tilted and lost a ton of ranks all at once. But something I have been doing is running into a lot of hunter. And since I'm playing Zulok, I think kind of in and of itself, it's not particularly good against Hunter because it's tapping, it's hurting itself. It doesn't really have any ways to gain life. And just through attrition, Hunter will beat it. I feel like if I try to control the board, Hunter just beats me through attrition. If I try to, out aggro it, then I leave the board alive and he absolutely murders me with the minions he gets on there. So I guess my broader question here is like, what do you guys think about countering Hunter right now? Like, what's the best way to do that, both with my deck and just in general?
The good old hated Hunter. Such a topic of controversy on the ladder. I feel like a lot of people hate it, other people love it. Definitely playing against it can be quite annoying at times. I feel that once you learn how to play against the deck, though, and you get comfortable with it, sometimes it's kind of welcome to see a Hunter in the ladder. But you're right, like, just because of the deck that you're playing, sometimes you can be really unfavored, especially against face Hunter, because they deal damage so fast to you, and that Demon Lock doesn't have much ways to heal himself. And aside from Defender of Argus, you don't have that many taunts either. So the Hunter can just silence whatever you Argus and just keep doing damage to the face, and you die too fast, because if you hero power, then you're kind of like helping the Hunter do what it's already doing to you.
Yeah, you're giving him a free hero power. It's
That's the concern.
In short answer, like we can go in a little more depth in a second, but in short answer, the deck that you're playing is just unfortunately unfavored against Hunter.
Yeah.
And I know that towards the end of tonight, you were like taking some stuff into Demon Zulog, like the Mistress of Pain.
Yep.
And I think you take the Sinjin too.
Yeah, Sinjin Shieldmaster currently is also in there.
I'm not exactly too sure about Sinjin. It is nice having a taunt in there, although that last game that we won...
We never played it.
Right before the podcast, we never played the Sinjin. It kind of like sat in our hand.
To be fair, though, we did have double. We had double Argus, which is a 4-drop taunt that
True.
was playing that instead.
True.
But that's a fair point. Go ahead.
If you're
Billy,
running
you saying something?
Senjin for defense against aggression, aren't you better off with a heal bot?
I've considered that as well. The reason I don't like Healbot as much is it doesn't contest the board quite as much, but it does
contest the
I
board
think
with
you're
the
right
same amount of damage and heals.
That's true. I mean, it is an extra mana as well, and I kind of had a 4-slot since I took out one Implosion to give less, because I feel Implosion is pretty weak against Hunter and Patron, so I was lessening that a little bit. But that is a good point. Something else I was wondering is it worth putting Kazan in?
Please no. Okay. So here's... I hate to divulge from your topic, because I'm interested in your topic. However, my experience with ladder this week has been... I did a lot of Freeze Mage, and for some reason, I haven't been finding any other secret classes, but for some reason, everyone's running a Kazan Mystic and keeps stealing my Ice Block, and I'm like, why are you running this card? I haven't seen any secret runners, like, why are you...
it actually is common.
I haven't seen any. Other than Mage, but Mirror Entity is easy to deal with. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Mage and Hunter right now. I mean, those are two of the two only potent secret classes. It's not like you're going to be playing this to beat Paladin. So I get why people are running it. I'm just not positive if I want to.
So the only reason I would advise against the Kazan Mystic, I feel like Kazan Mystic works really well in decks like Druid, where they have very few ways of getting rid of the traps, and let's say a freeze trap can stall a Druid really well and leave him without any options. On the other hand, though, your deck tends to run really small minions, and you don't have as much of a problem triggering the traps and still having a board. And let's say freezing trap against you diminishes a ton, because you might be able to get it with an abusive sergeant, or even better, a defender of Argus, which is one of the best targets that you can run into a freezing trap.
Right. So one of my thoughts about that is just that I feel like most of the time I lose Hunter, as you saw in that last game, Andres, it's down to the wire. It's a race.
Yeah,
it's close.
Definitely you'll be down to the wire, and you need to get on the offensive as fast as you can, while trying to conserve your health as much as you can. I would say in that matchup, your best friend is the Owl,
Yeah.
rather than using a Kissin Mystic, because you're not as afraid of the trap. What you're afraid of is the tempo of Mad Scientist. If they can get a Mad Scientist that trades with one of your minions, and then they get the trap for free, and then they still get to play minions in the later turns, that's what is bad for you. That's what you don't want the Hunter to be able to get on you, because as soon as that happens, then the Hunter is probably on the offensive. So basically, you always want to keep like an even board and try to be on that edge where the Hunter has to start thinking like, I need to start trading to his minions or I'm going to get damaged a ton.
Right. I mean, that's the interesting thing about Hunter is, and what I've not been able to quite figure out yet, is it seems like to beat them, you can't just sit back with this class and, control their board. Because they're just going to hit you with hero power, hit you with charge, hit you with weapons, and you're going to be dead controlling their board the whole time and not putting any pressure. But you can't put too much pressure because then you're ignoring their board. So that's the really tricky thing, is like finding that way that you're controlling their board while also dealing pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, playing against Hunter, you need to assume a certain mentality. And granted that playing against Face Hunter and then playing against Mid-Range Hunter does have a few variations. Right. There is one thing in common, and when you're playing Hunter, inevitably at one point in the game, you will die. Unless you're Warrior or Priest, your hero power, like the hero power of Warrior and Priest, cancels the Hunter one. But any other class, inevitably the Hunter will kill you at one point or another just with the hero power.
Yeah.
So it's the only class that I can actually integrate it into the class. They have a clock on every other class.
Yeah, totally.
That is why classes like Warrior, especially when it's teched against the aggro kind, can have such good success against Hunter, because their hero power naturally counters theirs. But against classes like Warlock, where your hero power kind of helps them in a way,
it
right?
enhances theirs.
It enhances their strategy. You're gonna have a very short clock, so that's why you need to get on the aggressive as fast as you can. And cards, for example, like Owl and Void Caller are your best friends, because those cards are what is gonna put you ahead of They're gonna negate their tempo and they're gonna give you tempo. So
especially if you can get something like Mal'Ganis, because not only does he typically negate 7 damage when you go into your face, but you can tap while you have him out, and you're putting a ton of aggro when you have him out.
Exactly. So or getting a Doomguard out of your Void Caller is one of the best things you can do against Hunter, because immediately that kind of puts them on the defensive, and it's a huge body with a lot of attack that if it comes down on like turn 5 from a Void Caller, can be really good for you.
So I think that thing I'm having to figure out, though, is like if I get a Doomguard out and he has like a Leopardome and an Owl, well, maybe that's a bad example because of like beast triggering. But if he has like, I don't know, a couple Leopardomes out, like going face instead of using my Doomguard to slowly remove his minions, because otherwise he can just keep going face and kind of playing minions to distract my Doomguard. So it kind of feels like at some point I need to start using my threats to burn him down and make him remove those, rather than just using big threats like a Doomguard to keep controlling his board.
That is why Defender of Argus is so important in this matchup.
Right.
Because it's the only card in the deck that, 1, gives you taunt, and 2, is the only card in the deck that can allow you to go to his face while making him go against your minions rather than your health. And that is like the key here. You want to minimize damage as much as you can. Like tapping in this matchup has to be almost like pre-planned. You need to think about it really well and count your health, count how much damage they can have, because literally tapping 2 times or even 2 or 3 times can cost you the game.
Totally, and just knowing when to do that. And the reason I'm so like hyper focused on beating Hunter instead of just playing another deck is I really do want to stick with this deck if I can get to Legend, just because I know it so well, and because it's been going so well for me. And as I mentioned to you guys before, my win ratios are like 78% against Druid, 78% against Mage, 100% against Rogue, 100% against Shaman, 78% against Warlock, and 83% against Warrior. And then like Hunter is down at 23%. And it's like, if I can just get that up to like 40 or 50, I'm going to get there. But it's such a bad thing when I go into a Hunter match and pretty much just have to resign it with how many there are out
I think
there.
that maybe, because you're right, you're very used to your other matchups, and I think you play your other matchups really well. But I think is because in your other matchups, the mentality of Sue is more about what you're used to, kind of controlling the board and then slowly chip at their health, and then just win with like Doomguard, Power Overwhelming, or something like that.
Right.
But with Hunter, you have to be so on the defensive, and you have to be so aggressive. Like your mulligan needs to be very aggressive. For example, against the Druid, it might be fine to keep a Void Caller in your hand, especially if you have like a Doomguard or something like that. But against Hunter, you don't want anything expensive. Actually, your expensive cards really hurt you. Like Dr. Boom, especially against Faint's Hunter, sometimes is useless. It'll just sit in your hand and won't do much unless you can control the board really well.
Yeah, and against Hunter, sometimes you're doing crazy things like playing turn 1 abusive just to get something on the board.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. So that's kind of the two things. One is playing against it, and one is building your deck against it. And with playing against it, I think we talked about some really good things there. The idea of splitting between aggro, using your taunt to kind of keep presence while being able to keep going to his face, and not just waiting him out, but pushing him while forcing him to deal with your threats at the same time.
That is the key in that matchup. If you can force the Hunter to take... If you can take the attention of the Hunter away from your face, even for a turn, 2 turns would be amazing.
Exactly. It's kind of like a wild animal that you're just trying to distract with a little toy or something. It's like, look over here, look over here.
Just don't look at my face. Aim at everything.
He doesn't have to look at the face. He just keeps pressing this button, and then it does damage to your face.
So I guess the second... Oh, go ahead, Andres.
That was the other thing that I was going to say. They're going to try to maximize their hero power. Like, really good hunters are going to try to hero power as much as they can while holding onto cards they can charge later on, like Arcane Golem with Abusive Sergeant and stuff like that.
So I'm going to jump into text here real quick, but before that, what about playing against mid-range compared to face? Because we focused very much on the scariness of Hunter killing you quickly. How would you change your playstyle for mid-range? Because as someone who hasn't played Hunter, I don't have a good feel for like how that shifts.
Well, I've been playing a lot of Hunter this week, and specifically mid-range.
Yeah, you can go
Hunter.
ahead, Billy.
I don't really know how, to be honest. Like, I don't think I've lost to a Warlock this week as Hunter at all. The matchup is just really, really good. I don't think you really can beat mid-range unless you're running like hyper defensive cards, and then your deck is
so why do you
becoming
think
worse
it's unwinnable, like compared to face Hunter?
Well, I don't know. I feel like once they feel obligated to use a lot of their removal on the early aggression, because mid-range kind of looks like face Hunter now at the start. There's really kind of no way to differentiate the two decks because they're running Leper Gnomes instead of Web Spinners now.
Yeah.
So when they do see, a turn 1 Leper Gnome, turn 2 Mad Scientist, turn 3 Bow, they're getting like, they start getting scared because they're like, oh my god, I'm getting rushed right now. And then on turn 6 they see Savannah Highmane and they're like, wait a minute, what? And then Belcher Hero Power next turn, and I don't know. I feel like that once it's gotten to the point where you're playing Belchers and Savannah Highmanes, they've just used all of their stuff and they can't really do anything unless they get out of Mal'Ganis, at which point you're like, then. It's like, all right, see how it is.
Yeah, I can see that. What do you think, Andres? Like the difference there between mid and face?
I was gonna say the main difference is that with face, you're gonna be expecting them to go to your face literally every turn as fast as they can and just try to rack as much damage in as fast as possible to bring it down low enough so they can use all their reach, quick shot and kill command on your face.
Right.
The difference with mid-range Hunter is that it doesn't have that fast start. It doesn't have like the bunch of 2/1s, Leper Gnomes, and the little wolf. What's the Worgen guy?
Oh,
with
Houndmaster.
stealth.
No.
Oh,
No,
you mean the
stealth.
Worgen Infiltrator?
Yeah,
Yes.
Worgen Infiltrator, like that kind of guy. They're not going to have that sort of start. One of the biggest telltales of a mid-range Hunter is that they play a web spinner on turn 1. As soon as they play that web spinner, you can assume it's mid-range because most face hunters don't run one web spinner just because it doesn't work toward their goal, right? It's not immediate damage. It is one damage is not that significant. While the mid-range hunter loves getting the web spinner. It's a cheap 1/1 that doesn't lose you card advantage and gives you a beast that can be great later on for things like Houndmaster.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the things you play around for both decks are different. In one, you're trying to put minions on the board as fast as possible. So like you can feel free to play abusives like without their full value, just like play an abusive first turn just to get something in the board to start trading. With a mid-range hunter, you can maybe not be as aggressive in the start. You're looking for having a big mid-game. And rather than expecting them to play a bunch of creatures that go into your face with low health that you can trade easily with your minions, you're going to have to play around things like Houndmaster and Belcher, where the value of their minions are a little better. So, for example, removing all the beasts against a mid-range hunter is super important. You can also expect them to use some of the removal on your creatures. Like, rather than saving everything till last and doing it on your face, it's very common to see a mid-range hunter use Quick Shot on one of your guys.
Right.
To get rid of it, like, early on and just, like, assume control of the board.
Yeah.
Also, high mains. You can be expecting a high main with mid-range hunter around turn 6. While with the face hunter, unless it's the hybrid version, high mains are not there ever. Same with Houndmasters.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to recognize it because that's what you're gonna be playing around. And same with the traps. Like mid-range hunter loves freezing trap, and sometimes they take in snake trap. While the phase version, you can be expecting explosive trap.
Yeah. All right. So that kind of curtails, I think, pretty nicely into the second thing I just wanted to talk about on this, which is like teching against Hunter. And obviously there are some cards that are going to apply to all classes, and there are some specifically for my deck that I'm curious, like for people playing Warlock, what are you going to do about this? So we talked a little bit about the possibility of Kazan. The weakness behind that, obviously, is that it's no good against most other classes.
I would say Kazan is good if you're seeing a lot of Hunter and a lot of Tempo Mage and maybe like some Freeze Mage scatter around. Feel free to take a Kazan in. But if you're just seeing Hunter and not much Mage, the Kazan might be a dead draw most of the time.
Exactly. I mean,
unless there's like a ton of Hunter suddenly.
Luckily, a 4/3 isn't like terrible, especially for Zulak. It's getting more aggression on the board, but it's not what you necessarily want. The main reason I love it against Hunter is, like I said, it can be such a race. And if you can not only negate either 2 damage to your entire board in face or a freezing trap, you're not only negating that big hit on you, but you're then hitting the Hunter with the same thing. So like if you steal an explosive trap, like any charge minions of theirs die.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt, stealing a trap from a Hunter is gonna be good no matter what. Yeah. I'm just saying it from the standpoint of
like Patron.
That card is gonna be good in that matchup and that matchup only. And like you've seen in the ladder, Hunter is not the only thing you've been running into.
Yeah, but it's the only thing I'm losing to consistently. So it's like the question of, can I sacrifice, a little bit on those other matchups that I'm winning so much to, boost a Hunter win? And it's trying to figure that out. But yeah, I'm curious about that. Sinjin doesn't seem like the best pick. So like, other than the demon that I'm forgetting, the Mistress of Pain, do you think there's another good Zulak Hunter counter?
I will just say this. Like, when you're adding tech cards to a deck, you're to beat a specific matchup, you're making it worse in like every other matchup. And according to Tempo Storm, and I don't know how they figure out these stats, I would imagine they just take an average thing. Mid-range Hunter, the current mid-range Hunter list, the one that's running 2 Leper Gnomes and a Glaive Zuka, is winning 7 out of 10 matches against Zulak.
Yeah,
there isn't a lot you can do to,
what about Face Hunter?
Mitigate that. Face Hunter against Zoo, this will take one moment, hold on, is about a 50-50 matchup. No.
Right.
It's a 6. They win 6 times out of 10. No, you win 6 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I'm at 20% with Hunter, so I feel like I can improve.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like I said, it is an unfavored matchup. Not unwinnable, but it is unfavored. If we're talking about taking against Hunter in general, not just specifically Zulak, though, I feel there's certain type of cards that are really good against that. And those are cards that can bring you back in your health total or can generate virtual health towards the end of the game. Things like Healbot, Shield Block, even Mal'Ganis are the sort of card that I'm talking about, where you can focus on controlling the hunter for the beginning of the game and trying to mitigate as much damage while putting yourself in the aggression, because it's going to take some time. Hunter is just going to come out like a raging bull, you know what I mean? And it's up to you to tame that beast, and you just have to spend the beginning of the game really working on your board and making a board that they're not going to be able to exploit with, say, like Knife Juggler, Unleash the Hounds, or just Unleash the Hounds by itself. And once you are able to assume that aggression point, usually they're going to have you pretty low to the point where they might be able to finish you off with top decks. That is the point where you want these cards. That is where you want to drop your Healbot. You want to drop your shield block and armor up, or where you want to do a big like Void Caller into Mal'Ganis turn, or just like hard cast Mal'Ganis into the board, and it's it acts as a meat shield, right? Like as a taunt. Where
we saw that last game.
Yeah, where the hunter has to deal with that before it goes back to your face. Or the hunter might not be expecting you to heal for 8 damage at that point. So the top decks that he gets at that point are kind of counterproductive, and he might be forced to use him on your creatures so he doesn't die. So it's kind of like a big swing like that. I feel like that's kind of what you're looking for in that matchup. Just like focus a lot on assuming the aggression, and then use tech cards like those to live those last few turns. Because no game with Hunter is going to go past turn 10, or very rarely. So it's all about like those first like 7 turns. That's your window.
I will say, if you want to beat Midrange Hunter or Face Hunter or really any of the Hunters, Handlock is really, really good. With Healbot and Molten Giants and Defender of Argus, it's very rare that they can push through that.
That's a good point.
That Malloc is actually pretty good against that too.
Yeah,
it has a lot of like early game like board control, and then it has Healbots as well.
Oh, interesting.
It also wins with spell damage, so you're not worried about the traps. I've seen a lot of the.
I will say it's very rare that you're going to be able to trigger your Malagos combo against a Hunter. I don't think you should be going for that if you're playing the Malagos deck. Because then
you'd be surprised with Thaurissan. You can do some pretty cool stuff.
You just said though that it's very rare you're going to make it to turn 10. So in order for the combo to work before turn 10, you're going to need Emperor Thaurissan to hit all 3 pieces of the combo rather than just one of them, which is the current way you can pull off the combo. Because that's the only way you can get it to trigger before turn 10.
Right.
Yeah, and you're right about that. Like, most of the games are going to end quickly, but there are decks around there that are designed to last a long time. Let's say, like, Freeze Mage. Those are the type of decks that might get you to turn 10 with Hunter.
Well, we were talking specifically about the Malagos deck just now. And that can't do that.
Same with that one. That one has a lot of defensive power and a lot of heal.
Yeah, I mean, does it run double bots?
I believe they do.
Yeah, so that's like 16 points of healing. So that does get you much more of a late game than most decks would. But yeah, that's a lot of good advice. I think I want to be really careful not to dilute my deck so much to fight Hunter and bump that up to maybe 30 or 40% that I'm dropping, 60% against other classes, because you don't want to focus on your weaknesses too much, because that's going to, kill your deck at some point.
And it's a judgment call too. If for some reason you're seeing a ton of Hunter in the ladder that day, be conscious that you are at a disadvantage. And even if you're taking against them, you are sort of at a disadvantage. I think the Mistress of Pain are a really great deck against them, because they act like the card that I told you. Like in the beginning, they can help you mitigate some of the damage. It might be a minion that they're forced to remove. But in the late game, it can also be really good in combination with Abusive Sergeant or Power Overwhelming to just get like a big burst heal in one turn that might keep you alive.
With that before, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's really, I like the Abusive because it's similar to Armor Smith in that it's a 1/4, which already, removes a lot of the annoying early threats, but it's 4 damage that they kind of have to remove. So that's almost healing yourself for 4.
Yeah.
Almost like taunt, because like they can't ignore that thing because it can just heal and heal and heal until they remove it. So the idea of having a turn 1 or 2 thing that basically has taunt and is also healing you can really help you mitigate that early aggression. So I like that for sure. I think I'm going to play around with the Senjin right now. I might switch it to either a heal bot or a Kazan and just see what types of results I get from those. But I don't think it'll be too much else in my deck.
Mistress of Pain, underneath the impression that you're already damaged, which is going to be rare if you're playing it early game, automatically heals at least 5, right? Because it's going to heal 1 when it's damaged, and it has 4 health. So, they need at least 4 damage. That's really good. 2 mana, heal 5.
Yeah, and even without that, like you said, if you're not damaged, then they're going to feel like, well, I might as well take it out because he's not even damaged yet. So if I damage him instead of removing it, then he's going to get value out of it. So, it really puts him in a spot. I could even double it, but I don't like the idea of running 2 of those.
I would say I would put in double Mistress of Pain before putting a Kizan Mystic.
Interesting.
Just because of what I said, Kizan Mystic is good and it does get rid of the trap and it helps you out a lot. But I feel like this deck doesn't suffer from triggering traps as much as other decks. What this deck suffers is from the tempo loss. So I think it's more of a matter of playstyle, like saving that owl, mulliganing for it, and saving the owl for the scientist. And then on turn 4, you really want to play like a Void Color or a Defender of Argus rather than the Kizan Mystic. So I think it's more of a playstyle kind of thing than taking and stealing the traps.
True. I feel like, and maybe this is just me, I could see it as like the Mistress of Pain being better against Face Hunter and maybe the Kazan being better against mid-range. Because
that's a good point.
I feel like mid-range might suffer more from having to have one of its creatures frozen and that sort of thing, and you could keep pressure up against it.
I think it would hurt it a lot more. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I could kind of see that. I might just start keeping an eye of which type of hunter is giving me more trouble and which I'm seeing more of and then take accordingly. Because honestly, I haven't been noticing that differentiation enough. So, yeah, that is a lot to think on. I think, like I said, I'm either going to throw in the second Mistress, or maybe the second Mistress and a Kazan and remove the Sinjin. Maybe I can find one other card to remove for the second Mistress. But I definitely think I'll be taking out the Sinjin for something else because I do have those Arguses for the taunt.
Yeah.
And just see what happens. Also you gave me a lot of good advice for just how to fight Hunter in general. So hopefully just by playing differently, I won't necessarily need a radically different deck to at least bump that up to, 30-40% win ratio and then be able to ride
sneak a few wins in.
Yeah. But like we talked about before, the most important thing to Legend being, being able to stick with the deck and not just switching to the flavor of the week. I really do want to find a way to make this work and not just, relearn a deck when I have a week left.
Yeah.
So, we shall see.
I think that's a good discussion. And I mean, in good news, one of the only things about Hunter is this, that it is a powerful deck, it is strong, but it's also one of the decks that sometimes can be easier to play around. Except for the traps, you can usually know what to expect from a Hunter. And like they've been around for so long that everybody knows all their combos. And so it's not like Patron Warrior with like Thorson that sometimes is so hard to play around. With Hunter, it's a little more straightforward sometimes, I feel. So don't be intimidated by the matchup, man. Just go for it.
Well, where people see a lot of Hunter as well, Billy?
Where do they see a lot of Hunter?
They see a lot of Hunter at the beginning of the ladder also. And after we talked a lot about getting from rank 5 to Legend and that whole push, Andres, you had some things you wanted to say about like how to even get started in ladder for people who are around 17, 19, in those really low
absolutely.
ranks.
I thought I could bring that as a topic this time because we did do something for the people who were up there in the ladder last time, and we did get some feedback from other people like, hey, I'm not even close to rank 5, so that's awesome advice, but I can't really do anything with it. So we want to touch on something for those people who maybe haven't broke through rank 10. Maybe some advice to them. So we care about all of our listeners, guys. Okay?
Yes, we care about at least half of you. Anyone who's not playing Hunter, we care about.
I care about the Hunters, guys. Don't listen to Bryan.
I don't care about the Hunters. I'm sorry. Andres,
you are a Hunter and you don't care about the Hunters.
No, well, to be
you have
fair,
a golden Hunter. You can't say anything.
All right. I'm one of the scumbags.
Exactly. All right, so Andres, so where do you begin? I'm new player. I have 7 cards. I don't know how that's possible, but I only have 7 cards. How do I win on ladder?
All right, so let's start with some little tips, and that's cool. Yeah, let's assume you're a new player, and so what do? You just started Hearthstone. I would say get familiar with the game at first. Just play around with the AI, the basic decks. Like, it really doesn't matter. Get your feet wet. But once you get a sense for the game, one of the things you can do is start watching some people play the game. It's one of the most recommended things. If you have friends that already do, watch what classes they're playing, what decks they're playing, because there are decks out there that are definitely really well crafted, have been perfected over time. Get a general sense for what those are, and then pick one. Pick a class.
Yeah.
Pick one, and I would recommend pick one that is based on the flavor, like something that you like. To be honest, like, every class in this game can get to rank 10 or more. No problem. I mean, there's pros out there who take any class to legend. So don't be worried too much in the beginning for which class is the best, or if this one is more powerful than this one, and what if I don't like. Just pick one that you like and see what decks are in that class. Depending on which one you pick, you might have a ton of options. Like with Warrior, you can go Control Warrior, or you can go with Patron Warrior. With Hunter, you can go Face, or mid-range. With Warlock, you can do Demon Lock or Hand Lock.
With Rogue, you can go Oil Rogue or just lose a lot. And
with Rogue, you can go Oil Rogue, or that's about it. So yeah, depending on the class, there's different viable decks. And I'm not just talking about, like, you can build any deck with any class, but there's definitely certain decks that are more viable than others. And if you want to break rank 10, get your feet wet on the ladder, I definitely recommend getting familiar with the ones that are actually doing well at the moment. There are many that can do well, but just don't start with a random deck built by yourself, because that can be fun, but if your intention is to start getting better at the ladder and start climbing the ranks, you probably won't have much success in the beginning.
Yeah, so maybe don't start with building your own Overload Shaman deck and jumping on ladder and saying, I'm going to do this.
Exactly. I mean, you might get to rank 20 or 19 with that if you're first starting out and do it, like, especially if you have some basic knowledge of the game already.
Yeah.
But it's not going to get you very far.
Really important. If you're turned off by the idea of, I don't want to use decks other people are doing, I want to be creative with the game. I feel like starting out with playing decks that are existing is incredibly valuable, even if you want to do that. Which is a super fun thing to do as a new player, because you don't have to, you're like winning in a sense just because you're trying your own thing. But the reason I like starting with other decks is because it gives you a really good sense for the fundamentals of the game. You can focus just on the play of the game, and instead of blaming your deck, you can be like, okay, obviously I played that incorrectly because I'm losing a lot. So I need to improve my core fundamental understandings of how this game plays and how this deck plays. And additionally, whatever deck you create, you're still going to be fighting these decks. Like, 9 times out of 10 on the ladder, once you get up enough and get past this little bump, you're going to be fighting Oil Rogue, you're going to be fighting Patron Warrior, you're going to be fighting Mid-Range Hunter. So if you've played them, you understand them a lot better to then be able to play whatever your own creation is against them. So, like, I would say start with that, even if you do want to move into playing your own stuff later on, because it's a really good way to go.
I will say that for me, I disagree with both of you.
Okay.
I feel like when you first start playing Hearthstone, I think you do want to mess around with your own decks rather than using online decks. I did what these guys are talking about when I first played Hearthstone, because I jumped in when people knew the game like the back of their hands. The ladder was already 2 seasons deep, and Miracle Rogue was the most popular thing, and that's the thing I wanted to play. And when I jumped into this game and I started playing that, once that got nerfed, I had zero idea how to play this game. And I was lost, and I had to relearn the game all over again.
Well, that's a good point, that maybe don't stick with one deck. But I think you could still learn a variety.
That's a strong point, but I feel like a lot of new players won't have a lot of cards. So,
but it's a fair point in what you're saying over here. But I'm not saying just play one deck and don't play anything else for the rest of your life. I'm saying start with one deck. One deck at a time.
No, I definitely see what you're saying. But what I'm saying is when you first start off, what in my mind, what I would do, and it's what I intend to do when other card games come out, is to try my own ideas first and try to figure out why it's not working, and if I still can't come to a conclusion, then look at other lists and kind of learn what makes this good, rather than just adapting it and trying to learn the actual mechanics of the game, because you're going to learn the mechanics either way.
See, I found the opposite experience because that's how I started playing Hearthstone, and I never got anywhere until I started actually learning how the game was played and then adapting from that.
I
and
think
maybe it's different learning styles.
I think it's important to differentiate the skills required here, because what you're saying, Billy, you're completely right. It will give you a better sense for what cards are good and how to build decks with them. But I feel that teaches you deck building. And deck building is awesome, but I feel like it's a separate skill to piloting a deck.
Yeah, you're completely right. I apologize. It's just in my mind that's almost more important, because the core mechanics of the game can be learned fairly quickly. Not overnight, but deck building is something that takes a very long time to learn and even longer to master. So if you could get that in early, I feel like you'll be.
You're right. Deck building is one of the hardest things to do in this deck, and I'm the first one to admit I'm not the best deck builder out there. I've made my own experiments and I've had success with some of my own decks. But honestly, deck building is very hard. It requires a lot of time, and the best decks out there have been play tested for hours upon hours by hundreds of persons all over the world. And just like you by yourself when you're starting out, you're just not going to have the resources, knowledge, or time to really create a unique deck that is going to rush through the ladder like that.
I would relate it real quick to learning an instrument. If you're learning piano, typically it's fun to kind of mess around on the keys just because it's low stress and you're not being compared to an existing standard, and it gives you a good feel for it. But before you're actually going to be able to create worthwhile stuff, you're going to be learning other songs.
I think that's a great analogy, and it works really well for this sort of thing.
I don't know. I feel and I'm sorry, I'll let you go off on what you want to say in just a moment, but I want, for new players, I say telling, but trying to tell them to play that way almost forces them to spend money on the game immediately.
If you want to be competitive on the ladder, and we're not saying new players here. I mean, I think maybe that was a little bit misleading. I think most of this is coming from people who play a good deal of Hearthstone. They're listening to a Hearthstone podcast. I don't think we're talking about people who literally got the game, and maybe our introduction to that was a little unclear. This is people who have been playing several seasons and are just stuck at 17, stuck at 18, and can't really break past that.
Well, I feel like maybe I was a little bit misleading when I said newer players. I feel the same way that you just described. The same issues that you would have as a new player is probably the same issues that these type of people have, because I don't know, the same result. You're right, though. I was more gearing to my argument towards the newer
and that's
player.
A good point. But yeah, I mean that's a legitimate concern to bring up. Is okay, you're a pretty new player. You don't have a ton of cards, so Andres, how best to go about figuring out that deck and getting your start?
Yeah, that was the point. If you don't have a lot of cards, then you're trying to get a little more competitive in the ladder, move up the ranks, at least get to rank 10. Once you have a sense for what deck you want to play, make an informed decision, right? Do you want to be a control player? Want to be an aggro player? Do you want to do crazy combo decks? What kind of style do you like playing? Once you know which of the classes out there, what competitive decks out there, pick one and go for it. Just spend your time, even if you don't have all the cards. Work towards it. It's easier when you pick one deck that you can work towards, and you know that you're gonna be spending your dust, and you're gonna be trying to get the cards for that deck, rather than building a ton of decks and just having a bunch of subpar decks where they're not complete. Just focus on finishing one and building it. If you already have all the cards and you can build any deck, then great for you. If you don't have all the cards, just do that. Focus on getting one deck completely built out, all the core cards in it. Don't worry so much about the tech cards. Those come later. If some decks are asking for Harrison Jones or Black Knight, or sometimes even Big Game Hunter, those are important, but those are more important later on and are very specific to things. Focus on the core cards at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once you have it built and you have it done, I would say a lot of time just playing the deck and play it on the ladder. Don't go on casual, especially if you're at the lower ranks. Don't be afraid to just jump on the ladder. Even if you lose a game, like, what does that even mean? You just
If you're low enough, it literally
you
means
just lose
nothing.
a star, and that's about it. As long as you get to rank 20, you can't even go below that. So anything above rank 20, it doesn't matter. Just jump on the ladder and get some games in there. Because casual mode, honestly, is equally competitive. And you're going to find, like, equally competitive decks there, except that your wins don't actually end up counting.
Right.
So just don't be afraid of ladder. Jump on it with a deck. Get a ton of games in it, and like, don't be afraid to lose at first. Like, even me or any of the pro players, like when you get a new deck, it's like jumping on a car you've never driven before. You're not as confident in it. You need to get used to how the acceleration pedal works, how the brakes work before you can like really sprint off and like do cool stuff with the car. You just gotta get comfortable with it. So even if you lose a ton of games at first, don't get discouraged. You're learning the play style. To keep doing this, just like watch a lot of games too. There's, depending on how you like learning, there's a lot of streamers over there that on Twitch that you can watch. Find one that plays your specific style of deck. There's a lot of like different streamers, and there's one for every deck pretty much. You can find a person that plays the level or the style of deck that you want to play. You can find VODs too. There's videos all over the place. If you have any friends that already play Hearthstone, it's a great way to get your feet wet on some of those decks, especially if they're good at them. Just ask them more.
Yeah, friends are super nice as opposed to something like streamers who are good. But something you might be struggling with is just like, I just need to know like what kind of the topics I bring to the show. Like, how do I beat this class with this deck? Or like, how generally should I be playing this? Or what do I need a mulligan for? And if you have a good friend spectate you and just jump in Skype or something, he can just be watching what you're doing and giving you specific advice in your specific scenarios, and you're actually doing the plays. And that can teach you so much.
Or she,
So like getting
Bryan.
gender neutral pronoun, but good point. It.
Yeah, just don't be intimidated to do it. And like, I would say that experience is everything in this game. This is a game of information, pretty much. It's not a game like StarCraft or Counter-Strike, where muscle memory and practice has everything to do with how well you do in the game. This game, on the other hand, is all about knowledge, experience, and information. It's one of the few games, or not one of the few games, but one of the few esport games out there that you can learn really well just by watching other people play it and then just mimicking it yourself.
You can't just watch a StarCraft player and say, "Oh, he clicks like that." Okay, I'll
yeah,
just
exactly. You
click that
can't
fast.
watch a StarCraft match and be like, "Oh, that's easy. I can do that too." No, it
Right.
requires like years of training your fingers how to move like that and that fast
Totally.
to be able to play like that. Hearthstone is not like that. You can be sitting back drinking beer, no problem, playing
And
Hearthstone.
plenty of people do.
Plenty of people do, exactly. But
Which gives you an edge because they're junk, and then you can beat them.
So yeah, so just realize that and know that putting yourself in as many situations as you can with a deck is really what is going to teach you how to play well. Even the pros play hundreds of games and they lose a lot of them before they get really good with a deck. When you see somebody playing at a tournament, doing amazing stuff with a deck, playing around incredible plays and like guessing what their opponent is going to do, that is hundreds of games of experience. They have gone through so many different situations. Even when you see them make plays that don't really make sense, it's because they've been put into that situation many times before, and they have made mistakes many times before, and they have learned from those mistakes. They don't make him as much anymore. So play as many games, watch as many people as you can, whether it be streamers or friends or I don't know, tournaments. Just soak it in.
Podcasts are also great.
Yeah, podcasts, read articles.
Yeah. And not just our podcast. There are tons of great podcasts there. Like when I really got into Hearthstone, you can listen to several podcasts and just start, thinking about it. Like you said, soak it in, consistently think about it, consistently play it. And something I keep going back to, I think I talked about it in our stress on ladder as well. It's just like, even when you're losing, try to get past the anger of losing and learn from that loss as much as possible. And it's hard to do because that is not when you're thinking clearly. That's when you're really frustrated.
It is very frustrating to lose. But one of the worst things you can do is after losing a match, just blame it on RNG and walking away from the game, because you're not going to learn anything after that game. Like, if you lose a game, especially if it was a close game, really sit down and like go through those turns that you were unsure what play was the right one. One thing that I've started doing and that a lot of pros do is, if you're unsure of a turn, I started doing with Patron, because there's so many turns where there's so many things that you can do in the same place and you have limited time, that sometimes you don't have time to just go through all the possible moves. So I just screenshot that turn, and then once the match is over, I go back to the screenshot and just think about what could have I done differently. Did I have lethal? If I had used double whirlwind and stuff, would I have had enough damage from my Frothing Berserker?
Especially with Patron, you could rope like 12 times by the time you think of every possibility.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the sort of thing that will make you learn from your mistakes and not make them again in the future. And because Hearthstone is such a game where small decisions add up to a big result at the end, those little mistakes are the ones that you want to start working on, so you stop making them, because those are the ones that are going to give you the edge. When you're the one who stops making the misplays and is your opponent who makes them, that's when you're going to start moving up the ranks.
Totally. I think the last thing I have on this is, we can't go deep into a meta thing, and I know we've talked about that before, but if you are like, I hear people talking at the meta all the time, I can't get my arms around it. I was totally in that boat. I was sick of hearing the word because I didn't get it and didn't understand how that actually affected my play. The simplest thing I can say, all that really is, when it boils down to it, is knowing what other decks are currently out there. So when you're facing something, you can predict to some degree what the other person is going to play. It's really that simple. All the meta is when you queue up against someone, what is the likely deck they're going to be playing? And also, what deck do you want to be playing, because what's popular. So we mentioned it before, but just go to like Liquid Hearth or Tempo Storm and look up their meta reports and click into those and just start browsing the decks. You can read through one of those things in like 20 minutes, and you'll be up to date on basically every deck you're going to see. Yeah. And then generally learn the strategies, kind of check out their card lists, just get a sense for basically what they are and how they win. And then just start, noticing when you're facing it, like how they're winning and what they're doing it, and start playing as many different decks as your collection will allow, and focus on one or two, but maybe every month try to at least fit another one in for 10 or 20 games to learn it, like I did with Handlock, and then you get a sense for that deck as well and what it's trying to do. And that's really all you're doing, is understanding what decks out there that people are playing, and there's info that's literally compiling all of those. Yeah. So it's not as intimidating as it sounds at first.
And the last thing I was going to say, just before we close out this topic, is every deck has a game plan. Learn up and down the game plan of your deck. And what I mean by this is, if your deck is a combo deck, know how to get the combo and then know how to operate the combo. If your deck is an aggro deck, know exactly what cards you need to start with. Like, what I mean by a plan is, how does your deck win? And every single deck has one of those. Learn it up and down, and then learn how to adapt that plan to every other deck game plan, because it's not the same. Like when we were talking about, like, for example, Hunter. If you're facing a Hunter, you have to adjust your plan accordingly to the aggression they're putting out. But if you're playing a Priest, they're probably not going to be very aggressive. So you adjust your plan accordingly to that. If you can learn how those matchups work and how to adjust that plan, that's really what's going to get you really high up in the ranks. Is when you start playing without a plan that you find yourself with clunky hands, or with being unable to close out the game just because you maybe used your cards too early or you waited too long. So always keep that in mind. And I know it's a very general thing to say, just because it's so hard to go in specific to every deck and be like, this is what you got to do with this. This is got to do.
All right, 7-hour podcast, everyone. We're going to tell you how to play every deck.
But yeah, whatever deck you pick, there's a lot of information about this out there. Take your time to read Just like look up specific matchups. Be like, if you're playing Demon Zoolock and you're unsure how to win against, let's say, Control Warrior, look it up. Be like Demon Zoo versus Control Warrior in Google and read what people say on it. What cards are good in that matchup? What should be expecting? What should you be playing around? Over time, all this information is gonna add up to the point where you're gonna go into the ladder super prepared. Basically, what you want is when you start the game, instantly know, like, okay, this class is probably gonna be this kind of deck, and because it's this kind of deck, then I should be looking for this cards, and I should be using them in this order, and I should be playing around this card that he's probably gonna have. That's how you should be approaching your matches.
Yeah, Hearthstone, like you said, it's an information game, and it's something that you just have to keep absorbing the info and keep looking it up. And it's once you understand the rules of the game, understand what's out there and how to play around it, that then, like, within the limitations comes to creativity. Because deck building becomes something, if you want to get creative and even tweak your decks, it becomes something like, I guess this card looks cool, it could be good, to like the conversation we had where discussing even one different card in your deck, you're understanding all of the repercussions it could have against everything you're facing. And that's when even the little creative decisions you make are going to have a lot of meaning. So yeah, it's very much just creating kind of that knowledge base by playing the game a ton and soaking as much as you can, and everything else we said. So I think that was quite good, Andres.
Yeah, I think that concludes our topic. Wow, that went on for a little bit.
Well, we've got two pretty broad topics in 1 week, so let's just quickly get through your topic here, Billy. You brought us another custom card you made.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did.
I brought I'm assuming we're talking about this Scorpion, Corrupted Scorpion, specifically.
We are.
It is a 1-cost, 3/2 beast minion, and it is a hunter card. Oh my god, crazy.
Common rarity.
And its battle cry reads, discard a random card.
Why do you do this to me, Billy? I don't want this to exist. I'm disgusted looking at this.
So, like, I wanted to incentivize Hunter to play cards like the Core Rager. For those unfamiliar with the card, it's the card where if it hits your last card in hand, it will buff itself when it comes into play. I believe it goes up to a 7/7. And that card saw no play when that was released. And with all these cards that I'm creating, I've made a couple Hunter cards that have discard in its description, or in its ability.
Yep.
And Hunter still needs aggression, even when it's trying to do something like this. And the current aggressive cards for Hunter wouldn't suit this type of deck. So I wanted to make a new one. And granted, there's the problem of, okay, now I can run Corrupted Scorpion in my current aggro deck, and then it's even more aggro. Yep. Well, aggro already runs out of a lot of steam. And if like, really quickly, if now you're running 2 cards in your deck which discard cards from your hand, and you're just running the standard aggro deck.
Yep.
A lot of the time you're going to run out of steam before turn 4.
I do love the idea of a hunter coining out 2 of these and having 1 card on turn 2.
Yeah,
like all right, here we go.
If they start off with, I mean, if you're a warrior, and this is like a common occurrence in the meta, Cleave is a card you can run, and now you used 1 card to deal with the 5 cards that they just used.
I get it. I mean, it's really interesting thought. I'm trying to think, is there currently, I mean, okay, there's Flame Imp, which is a 3/2 for 1. That smacks the user in the face. So, I mean, this is kind of a thing in Hearthstone where you have a very bad negative effect, but you can get a 3/2 out on 1. So it's not
we
like...
have the Succubus that's kind of similar. The 4/3 that discards a card.
True.
For 3 mana. It's 3 mana or 2 mana?
The Succubus?
Yeah.
That is a 3 mana.
Okay.
That was a 2... No, I think it is a 2 mana.
I think it is 2 mana, yeah, right?
Yeah, because a 4/3 for 3 doesn't seem that good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I've considered running Succubus in the past, so I would imagine that I didn't think that a 3...
It's 2 mana, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 2 mana.
2 mana, okay, that sounds right.
Okay.
Discard a card is like a lot worse than dealing 3 damage, though. Like...
Oh, yeah.
The Zoo can get away with running a Flame Imp because it's only 3 damage, where discarding a card can be huge, even if you are an aggressive deck. And you're essentially saying discard a card, deal 3 damage a lot of the time, because this will usually die on turn 2 if you're versing like any normal deck. So, I don't know. I feel like it's a fairly balanced card. It just seems like giving Hunter more aggression is a terrible idea. But I feel like...
And obviously,
if
it
you
can be played
this
as your
in the-
last card with no drawback.
Oh, yeah, but by then, the downside won't be worth it anymore.
It's a big downside. But honestly, I quite like the flavor you're going with. I don't know. I kind of love the idea of a handless hunter. I mean, we already have things like handlock, where we named it handlock just because of the enormous hand size it builds.
Yeah.
And then it takes advantage of that hand size to make even more amazing things. So I don't know. I kind of love the idea of doing a hunter that its main purpose is to lose his hand really quickly and then kind of just like top deck from then on. And maybe cards. I mean, we already have some like Core Rager and Quick Shot, where they do stuff when you don't have any hand. And even other cards can be really cool with that type of hunter, like Jeeves or cards like that. I don't know. It could be like cool synergies of like, hey, if your hand is empty and you use this card, draw another card.
I wonder...
Or maybe you can chain other stuff. If your hand is empty and you play the spell, summon a beast or something like that, and you can create advantage like that. I don't know. I like it.
I think it has potential. They've definitely created cards around that strategy. I'm still not sold that strategy is good or fun, but it hasn't seen play yet, so I'll reserve my opinion.
I don't think there's enough cards to make a strategy like that work.
Yes.
Obviously, it would have to be like fine-tuned, but like the risk of a deck like that is that if you don't draw into like the right chain of cards, then and if you top deck the wrong thing, then you can be in a lot of trouble.
I like it because it is similar to Hunter's focus mechanic in WoW, though, where they like use through their bar pretty quickly, but it also refills quickly. That idea of like it kind of is, it fits the Hunter flavor of using everything up and then like drawing back with quick shot.
Yeah, and it can have
up.
like huge, like big little spurts like that. Like you can have a very aggressive early game with this sort of card, like the 3/2 for 1. But then it can run off steam really fast. But then, like you said, it just pick up steam. If they get like a right chain of cards, maybe they can like top deck into 3 different things into the turn. I don't know. It would be like a cool concept.
So you could have Starving Buzzard out, play it, and then get a card back anyway.
Well, I don't necessarily want to spoil another card, but Starving Buzzard might be getting a little bit better. I don't know. With my little set over here.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Starving Buzzard could use the love. I mean, he was already starving. Now he's starving and, like, locked away in everyone's collection box.
Starving?
So.
He's starved. He's gone. He's dead. He ran out of food.
Right. At this point, he's had nothing to eat for, like, 6 months or something.
Yeah, when was that? No,
I have no idea.
Starving Buzzard is really starving right now.
Yeah. Poor guy.
But yeah, no, I think that's cool, Billy. I'm always a sucker for this kind of thing, like cool mechanics that revolve around like a certain idea of exploiting what you would consider like a weakness. I don't know. For example, like handlock. Just drawing cards and killing yourself in the beginning seems like so counterproductive, but that deck makes it work. So why not have a deck that doesn't like having a hand? I don't know. It would give it a different spin.
It just goes against everything I do for card games. Like, I'm going to play a deck that's about not having options. I'm like, no, it's the worst.
That's the thing. You create your options by not having options.
Yeah, you get more options the less options you have. Right?
My brain. We need to move on. I can't think about this anymore. All right.
I'm pleasantly surprised.
What do you guys
feedback.
think? Do we have time for a listener topic this week, or should we close things out?
Depends what the listener topic is.
Is that
I may or may not
right?
have looked at it.
Yes. Our plan is to talk about MMR, but we have been going pretty long.
Yeah, that could take a while.
Yeah, that might take a little bit.
Maybe we should bring that next week.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Both of our topics went a little longer than we thought.
Totally. So we're going to tease it yet again. We're going to talk about MMR, but we're going to do it next week. So tune in for that. But yeah, I don't want to rush through it in 5 minutes, and we're already long, so that's probably for the best. All right, so that brings us to our outro, everybody. iTunes is a place where you can find our podcast. And apparently people haven't been doing that because we don't actually have any reviews this week.
Wow.
I'm
Disappointed,
very disappointed
guys.
in everyone at once. I now only like 30% of our listeners instead of 50%. But seriously, it does help a lot, and it's awesome for us to hear your feedback. So anyone who's interested and likes the show, just head over to iTunes, leave us a review. That would be awesome, and we'll read it on the show and shower you with accolades and all that.
Please do, so Bryan is not depressed.
Yes, so
we
I'm not
need
depressed.
our
That's why I
host
like
to
it.
be as happy as it can be, so the show can keep going on.
Yeah,
Brian's
not
just sitting at his phone refreshing constantly, like, iTunes review, iTunes review, iTunes, damn it!
Yeah, if it's another week without iTunes review, I don't think I'm going to laugh or smile the entire episode. I'm just going to be deadpan the whole time. It's like, hello everyone, welcome to Hearthaholics.
It really makes his day, so
Yeah,
just think about
indeed.
that.
It makes
I
all of
literally
our
thrive
days,
on
like,
it.
seriously, guys, those reviews
Absolutely,
are, like,
yeah. We love
super
reviews.
uplifting.
If I could, I would bathe myself in reviews every morning.
All right, this is getting weird. So moving on. We are also on Stitcher. I don't know if you can actually leave reviews there, but if you can, knock yourself out. I'll try to find them somehow. You can also email us at hearthaholics@gmail.com for, we have a listener topic every week, as you might have noticed, except this one. So go ahead and email us and we might feature your listener topic on the show. What have you been struggling with? Are you having trouble with Hunter? Maybe don't ask about that because we just talked about it, but we'll talk about things. Listen to the episode. You can check us out on Twitter at Hearthaholics or search us on YouTube or Facebook. Hearthaholics will find us because, no one else is using that name. Also, we are a part of the Whales Are Whales network. So head over to whalesareWhales.com and you'll see us there on the front page and you can find us there and all our archives and all that good stuff. Also, we run a game night for The Angry Chicken, a fellow awesome Hearthstone podcast. So just check out their subreddit. And, I believe, I always forget what that is, but I believe it's reddit.com/r/TAC podcast. I feel like such a Reddit newbie. I don't think most people put the reddit.com before that, but that's literally all I go to Reddit for. So, hey. But yeah, every Wednesday night now, we do a game night where we play Hearthstone for a few hours, starting at 8 p.m. CST. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot of tavern brawl for a long time. So if you're looking to meet some friends, talk about the game, and get more tavern brawls in, definitely check that out on the Angry Chicken subreddit. Andres, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. You can also find all the music that I do on my website, massivemusic.com, and you spell that MASSEVE music. Check it out. You can find the intro music to the show over there as well. One last thing I want to say, I wanted to give a little shout out to the Well Met podcast.
Totally.
I've been listening to them a little bit lately, and I think they're doing a great job. The way they deliver the information is super organized, super well put together. You can definitely tell they put a lot of thought into that. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out and you're looking for a good place to find information about the competitive scene, about all the news that are coming to Hearthstone, and just a very articulate discussion, check that out too.
Yeah, I totally meant to shout out them last week, actually, but since I'm much less well organized than they are, I forgot to put it in the show notes. But yeah, I've been chatting with John, their host on Well Met. He's awesome. Really like the show. And like you said, it's just very quality, very put together, and they know what they're talking about and how they want to talk about it. So check that out for a super informative Hearthstone podcast. Like we said, broaden your horizons, try some new stuff, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. And there's some of it.
Yeah, if you're listening to podcasts, especially Hearthstone podcasts, most of the people are like, want to try new things. If you already listen to Hearthstone podcasts, you probably listen to Well Met already. But if you haven't, check it out.
Yeah. Billy, where can people find you?
You can find me on various platforms. You can find me on Twitter at bbrawley, I believe. Yeah, bbrawley, that makes sense.
I have it written here as bbrawley, yeah.
Okay, well then there you go, at bbrawley. And if you want to find me on YouTube, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/brawleyhs.
Nice. And you can find me on Twitter at Lord Meldor. That is LordMeldorr. And everything else I do on the internet that is worth seeing is on whalesareWhales.com. So just check that out. I do a lot of stuff there. Finally, we are going to close out with our flavor text of the week, and we actually have it prepared this time.
No way!
Yeah, because I am well organized after all. Plot twist. All right, so here we go. You must read the name of this card out loud each time you play it.
Let the hunt begin.